Here you go.
Hello, this is George.
And Bonnie. Mwah.
And this is Adonai Sanctuary of Truth Classroom.
Yep.
And today is December 5th. I got a calendar right up there. and when I studied it, I found out a couple little things that you never saw before. That isn't a oddity for when us three get together and study. But we're going to start out in part of the letter, or as George and I put it, Adonai's letter, which is Exodus 15. My sweetie is going to read 1 through 12.
1 through 12.
Yes, ma'am.
Then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to Adonai. I will sing to Adonai, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he threw into the sea. Yao, is that how that is?
Mm-hmm.
Is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God. I will glorify him. My father's God, I will exalt him. Adonai is a warrior. Adonai is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he hurled into the sea. His elite commanders were drowned in the sea of Suf. The deep waters covered them. They sank to the depth like a stone. Your right hand, Adonai, is sublimely powerful. Your right hand, Adonai, shatters the foe. By your great majesty, you bring down your enemies. You send out your wrath to consume them like stubble. With a blast of your nostrils, the waters piled up. The waters stood up like a wall. The depths of the sea became firm ground. The enemy said, I will pursue and overtake, divide the spoil and gorge myself on them. I will draw my sword, my hand will destroy them. You blew up your wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, Adonai, among the mighty? Who is like you, sublime in holiness, awesome in praises, working wonders? You reached out your right hand, the earth swallowed them.
Now, they say that's a song, right?
What's that? It sang the song.
Sang a song. It's a good song telling you actually what really happened. There's a few things that jumped out at us. And how do we continue with that? My sweetie's going to read verse 13.
In your love you led the people you redeemed. In your strength you guided them in your holy abode.
In your strength. Then in 14 and 15, the people in Plashit, Edom, Moab, and the ones in Canaan are melting away. That's it. And they're melting away. Read the first part of 16, please.
Terror and dread fell on them.
Oh, think about it. Israel's riding high on the coats of Adonai right now. Read 18.
Adonai will reign forever and ever.
How long? Forever and ever. They know Adonai is going to reign that long. Then you might say Aaron and Moses' sister, the prophet Miriam, started dancing with all the women and playing their tambourines. What a time of joy, seeing and believing at that time. But think about it. But that trusting in Moses and Adonai will be short-lived. My sweetie's going to read 22 and 23.
Moses led Israel onward toward the Sea of Suf. They went out into the Shur desert. But after traveling 3 days in the desert, they found no water. They arrived in Mira, but couldn't drink the water there because it was bitter. This is why they called it Mira, or bitterness.
It's only been in the desert for 3 days with no water. They go to a place like my sweetie read, Mira, which means bitterness. Well, she'd better read 24 and 25 now.
The people grumbled against Moses and asked, "What are we to drink?" Moses cried to Adonai, and Adonai showed him a certain piece of wood, which when he threw it into the water, made the water taste good. There Adonai made laws and rules of life for them, and there he tested them.
Boy, that trust that we just talked about in Adonai and Moses was what you'd call kind of short-lived. After traveling 3 whole days.
3 whole days.
Only 3 days, that's all it took. Then Adonai gives the Israelites an insurance form, you might say, to follow. Read 26.
He said, "If you will listen intently to the voice of Adonai your God, do what he considers right, pay attention to his mitzvah, and observe his laws, I will not afflict you with any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, because I am Adonai your healer."
We like how Adonai starts that. If you are listening, or if you will listen, with this insurance freshly stated, they come to Eliam. Now read 27, please.
They came to Eliam, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and camped there by the water.
A great place to camp out for a while.
Sounds like
Enjoy the shade, drink the spring water, and rest. What? We have to leave this paradise and move on? Oh my goodness. We find this joy, this trust in either Adonai or Moses was so very short. You might say short-lived. Oh no. Let me see something. Yeah, read 1 and 2. 16, 1 and 2.
They traveled on from Eliam, and the whole community of the people of Israel arrived in the Sin desert between Eliam and Sinai on the 15th day of the 2nd month after leaving the land of Egypt. There in the desert, the whole community of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron.
Did you catch that? On the 15th day of the 2nd month after leaving slavery, and that happened, what she just read about. The same thing happens today with people going, woe is me. It's your fault. Think about it. That only took 45 days before they started grumbling again after leaving slavery. Read 16:3.
The people of Israel said to them, "We wish Adonai had used his own hand to kill us off in Egypt. There we used to sit around the pots with the meat boiling, and we had as much food as we wanted. But you have taken us out into this desert to let this whole assembly starve to death."
Would you say they have a very short memory? Now, that's kind of easy to see. 45 days. And how many times have they already grumbled? And now they're saying it seemed whatever their problem was, they They reasoned it back to how good those 430 years must have been in Egypt. Where they went through. Now, since they left there, they had the bitter water of Marah, food in the desert. Then after both times, what did they do? They turned against Adonai and Moses. Even Aaron. My sweetie's going to read, I forgot that one again. My sweetie's going to read 16:3. Again.
The people of Israel said to them, "We wish Adonai had used his own hand to kill us off in Egypt. There we used to sit around the pots with the meat boiling, and we had as much food as we wanted. But you have taken us out into this desert to let the whole assembly starve to death."
Can you imagine
Moses, I'd be packing
seeing the wonders that Adonai gave them? All the help that he gave them. They got money, clothing, food when they left Egypt. And now, 45 days later, you hear them say, "We wish Adonai had used his own hand to kill us off in Egypt."
Mm-hmm.
See what I said earlier about having short memory? Now in Exodus 16:4-8, Moses tells the people what's going to happen. My sweetie's going to start out by reading 4 and 5.
Adonai said to Moses, "Here I will cause bread to rain down from heaven for you. The people are to go out and gather a day's ration every day. But by this I will test whether they will observe my Torah or not. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they had brought in, it will turn out to be twice as much as they gathered on the other days."
Gather the ration for each day, no more. Only what you need. Adonai will see through this test if they will observe my Torah. In other words, will they learn anything from my teachings? Or will they try to hide from Moses what they took, 2 or 3 times, just in case the food stopped? Now we understand that Moses and Aaron said to the people in verse 6, read verse 6.
Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, "This evening you will realize that it has been Adonai who brought you out of Egypt."
This evening, after everything, they tell the Israelites, "This evening you will realize that Adonai brought you out of Egypt." Just in case they couldn't figure that out.
You didn't remember again.
Read Shemot or Exodus 16:7, please.
"And in the morning you will see Adonai's glory, for he has listened to your grumblings against Adonai. What are we that you should grumble against us?"
Adonai has and hears your grumbling against him, in other words. But what are Aaron and myself that you should grumble against us? Interesting. Mm-hmm. If you really study verse 8, it's what we call kind of interesting. Read verse 8, please.
Moses added, What I have said will happen when Adonai gives you meat to eat this evening, and your fill of bread tomorrow morning. Adonai has listened to your complaints and grumblings against him. What are we? Your grumblings are not against us, but against Adonai.
Meat in the evening, bread in the morning. Adonai does listen to your complaining and your grumbling against him. When you complain to or about Aaron and myself, When you do that, Moses states, what are we? Think about this, O people of Israel. You're really not grumbling at us. No, you're grumbling and complaining against who? You might say Adonai, the Lord God. That should hit home. And you might say, it should also hit about here. Read 16, 9 through 12, please.
Moses said to Aaron, say to the whole community of Israel, come close into the presence of Adonai, for he has heard your grumbling. And Aaron spoke to the whole community of the people of Israel. They looked toward the desert, and there before them the glory of Adonai appeared in a cloud. And Adonai said to Moses, I have heard the grumblings of the people of Israel. Say to them, at dusk you will be eating meat, and in the morning you will have your fill of bread. Then you will realize that I am Adonai your God.
Moses says to Aaron, tell the people that for me, please. In the cloud, Adonai said to Moses, then they will realize that I am Adonai. Now, I want you to think about that one little phrase. Because there's a little comment that I wrote after that. All the things they went through, I'd have to ask you, what does it take a brick to fall on their heads? To understand who he is? But think about what the last statement I just read, that I wrote. In all reality, that is most likely what it would take nowadays. Read 16:13.
That evening, quail came up and covered the camp, while in the morning there was a layer of dew all around the camp.
Quail in the evening, dew in the morning, just like Moses told them it was going to. Read 14, please.
When the dew had evaporated, there on the surface of the desert was a fine, flaky substance, as fine as frost on the ground.
A fine, flaky substance, where they asked in verse 15, Manu, M-A-N-H-U, which actually is, what is it? Read 15 and 16, please.
When the people of Israel saw it, they asked each other, Manu, or what is it? Because they didn't know what it was. Moses answered, it is the bread which Adonai has given you to eat. Here is what Adonai has ordered. Each man is to gather according to his appetite. Each is to take an omar, or 2 quarts per person, for everyone in his tent.
Take an omar of this flaky stuff, and they didn't even know what it was, per person. Now, when I really started thinking about this next one, we have never heard Exodus 16 verse 17 explained before. Read 17 and 18.
The people of Israel did this. Some gathered more, some less. But when they put it in an onar measure, whoever had gathered much had no excess, and whoever had gathered little had no shortage. Nevertheless, each person had gathered according to his appetite.
The ones who gathered too much, and the ones who didn't gather the large amount, Adonai made sure it fit their appetite and it quenched their hunger. Have you ever heard that before? I never have. It didn't make any difference if the ones who gathered too much, Adonai made sure that it wasn't too much. And the one that gathered little, Adonai made sure it wasn't too little for him. Well, that's pretty much taking over and saying, okay, you guys can't mess this up.
Yeah. Let me make sure it's all right.
Then Moses says to the people, don't hoard any of it for tomorrow. In all reality, if Adonai did away with or made sure that they didn't collect too much, the ones who gathered a lot, or the ones who collected just a little, this was really reminding them who was in control. Then Moses says to the people, don't hoard any of it for tomorrow. Now read 20, please.
But they didn't pay attention to Moses, and some kept the leftovers until morning. It bred worms and rotted, which made Moses angry at them.
What? Those honest people, they didn't listen? After all, we want to make sure we have enough. Just in case is what they're probably thinking. Maybe Moses is wrong about this, or we want to make sure if Adonai forgets. Dumb excuses. Now, the people who actually have heard this in their churches or synagogues, most people have a minute amount of church going. With a minute amount of church going, you know the story. The bread rotted, had worms in it. If they kept the leftovers, those flakes were like dew when the sun came up. What happened if it wasn't taken from the field? Read 21, please.
So they gathered it morning after morning, each person according to his appetite. But as the sun grew hot, it melted.
The excess on the ground, the flakes, just melted away when the sun got hot. It seems the people got smarter, though. Well, I thought so. Read 22 through 26, please.
On the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers per person, and all the community leaders came and reported to Moses. He told them, "This is what Adonai has said. Tomorrow is the holy Shabbat for Adonai. Bake what you want to bake, boil what you want to boil, and whatever's left over, set aside and keep for the morning." They set it aside till morning as Moses had ordered, and it didn't rot or have worms. Moses said, "Today eat that, because today is Shabbat for Adonai. Today you won't find it in the field. Gather it 6 days, but the 7th day is the Shabbat. On that day there won't be any."
The reason we stated, "I thought so," well, read 27 too.
However, on the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather and found none.
Some of the people still went out on the Shabbat. Remember what 16:24 stated? Read 16:25, please. 16:25.
Moses said, "Today eat that, because today is Shabbat for Adonai. Today you won't find it in the field."
Did you hear what that verse, that one little verse is really telling you? This is a Shabbat. For who? Or whom, whichever one is correct, right? A Shabbat for who? It's a Sabbath for Adonai.
It says.
It's not for the people. It's a Sabbath for Adonai. Now, unless the scriptures are wrong, that's what it's told us. It's a Shabbat for Adonai. A day of rest wasn't, this is cute. A day of rest wasn't for the people. It states it's a day of rest for Adonai. That's interesting.
That's what it says.
Did all the man, I'm sorry, did all the manna, they called it man, did all the man which tasted like a honey cake rot away on the day it was over? All except, read Shemot 16:32 through 34, please.
Moses said, "Here's what Adonai has ordered, that 2 quarts of man be kept through all your generations, so that they will be able to see the bread which I fed you in the desert when I brought you out of Egypt." Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar, put in it 2 quarts of man, and set it aside before Adonai to be kept through all your generations." Just as Adonai ordered Moses, Aaron set it aside before the testimony to be kept. The people of Israel ate man for 40 years until they came to an inhabited land. They ate man until they arrived at the borders of the land of Canaan.
If they took man or manna too much, and they tried to hold the leftovers, if they tried to hide it, it got rotten, had bugs. But in what she just read, those 2 quarts of manna or man, they were to keep for generation upon generation. I guess that kind of points to the fact that Adonai is in control. Because if you keep it for 2 days, it rots. Except on the day before the Shabbat. Then you can keep it for 2 days and it won't rot. And then they are to take 2 quarts or 2 omer and put the man in it, or the manna in it, and it will keep for generation after generation. Now, who is control of what happens to that manna?
Yeah, I wonder.
And how long did this honey cakes last? Wait a minute. How long did this honey cakes for the Israelite families last? Read 35.
1635, right?
Just 35.
Yeah, 1635.
Yeah, 1635.
Okay. The people of Israel ate man for 40 years until they came to an inhabited land. They ate man until they arrived at the borders of the land of Canaan.
Can you imagine? Except for that day of rest on the Shabbat for Adonai, it lasted for 40 years, gathering that flaky stuff that they didn't even know what it was, and the quail in the evening. It lasted for 40 years. 40 years of wandering before it stopped, when they came to the borders of Canaan. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. You probably already knew all that stuff, but have you ever put 2 and 2 together? Have you ever come to the conclusion that there was 2 quarts or 2 omer kept for generation after generation because of what Adonai did? Because when they picked too much of the man, it would rot by the next day. But generation for generation, the 2 quarts lasted. Because of what? Because of Adonai. That was interesting. Kind of simple. Kind of reading that everybody, when you read it, I know you understood everything that was in there before, but I didn't. We hope you have a good week.
Yep.
Because that's it.
Join us next Tuesday.
We'll be on 17 next Tuesday. And hopefully we'll find something that jumps out at us. Maybe it'll jump out at you. But remember, the Shabbat was for a day of rest for Adonai. Unless the scriptures are wrong. That's what it says, right? Have a great
Have
week.
a good week, guys. Please like and share it. And check out our YouTube channel. Have a
Bye.
great week. See you next Tuesday.
Bye.